way. He always follows me. Do not do so. Do not.
Jasper Street is one I watched in 1989 and felt it wasn't my cup of tea. The child actors, the school setting and teen mystery, all a bit cringe to 16-year-old me. Happily, it's aged like fine wine and is an episode which I have a very fond place in my heart for. It's formidable character building and the mystery is clever. It has black wit, nuanced charm and kindness. Here we go again. The child actors are superb. Guided by this script and Bren Simpson's direction, they bring to life the same traits we see Sawalha and Ross exhibit. Lynda's single direction obstinacy and refusal to compromise. Kenny's oblivious attempts to smooth things over and make nice. Perpetually stunned by Lynda and character acting bad acting when Kenny knows he's in over his head. This scene has taken on an iconic stature in certain areas of PG fandom. On the Junior Gazette Facebook page, it's not unusual for birthday announcements to be followed up by the meme. The piece of music used as a reprise through this episode is Girls and Boys Come Out to Play. It's a nursery rhyme in existence since at least the early 1700s. The lyrics appeared in fragments over the following decades. This was at a time when children were expected to work in daylight hours and play in evenings. Their deployment suggests Moffat was quite aware of them. Girls and boys come out to play. The moon doth shine as bright as day. Leave your supper and leave your sleep, and come with your playfellows into the street. Some versions put boys before girls in the opening line, Lynda trying to make it in a man's world. The full lyrics were published in 1846 in a collection by James Orchard Halliwell. It's strongly associated with dance, something Lynda doesn't do much, but her initial escape and exploration are associated with play. Come with a whoop, come with a call, come with a goodwill, or not at all. Up the ladder and down the wall, a halfpenny roll will serve us all. She has latitude interpreting the line, come with goodwill, or not at all. I assume Lynda had no formal membership of play clubs, such as the Girl Guides, something the Junior Gazette will make up for. Watching Series 2 as a teenager, I must have been filled with lustful thoughts of Gabrielle Anwar. I'm reckoning because several decades on, the sight of her makes me inappropriately weak at the knees. As I mentioned, and will do again, I positively ship Sam and Kenny. The actors convey a genuine affection of friendship. Sam shedding her shallow veneer to check in on the recently dumped. The novelization of this episode is shorter than most. Serviceable, it doesn't add much, but a fine sprinkling of dialogue, where Sam and Sonia maybe exploit the blurring of graphics expenses and beauty products. The subplots are meagre this episode, not Series 2 standards that might have you evangelising on the street, but fun all the same. As with any strong writer, Terry Pratchett, for instance, it's a case that Not Gold Story is high above the rest of what's out there. Lynda to Ruby Grogan is possessiveness, kindness and funny. Spike and Colin's pseudo-fight is a joy to watch. Fletcher's coming down harder than Spike does in the novel, though he is clearly still motivated by the love of trolling. Colin in particular.
Spike, I don't want to get violent.
Violent?
Well, rude.
Rude?
Well, a bit offhand, certainly. Well, more kind of reserved, distant, coldly polite.
Meanwhile, the story of the flashback begins to seep into Lynda's memory. The visual work of director of photography James Debus and camera operator Mike Frift primarily realises little Lynda and the bullies by playing with camera focus and tilting Dutch angles. Here director Bren Simpson makes the most of the opportunity to step outside of the show's house style. It's a creative choice and serves story. Penelope Nice as Marion Day also gets a few choice lines. The boss has a mum who loves her. A 4 a.m. phone call to Kenny stirs his own long-buried memories, but of resentment. Because this phone call relates to the key character's story relationship, we can count it as a plot point and add it to the tally.
Kenny, it's 4 o'clock in the morning.
Sarah is more helpful, further building her credentials as the investigator type of journalist. And the reveal of the tribal icon in the kitchen builds a drama and deepens the mystery.
But it was in my bedroom 10 years ago.
Well, it's obvious, isn't it? A freak wormhole has opened up in the fabric of the space-time continuum. This seemingly insignificant wood carving has been sucked back in time 10 years to the bedroom of the infant Lynda Day. But what awesome celestial forces are behind this strange phenomenon? And what, Lynda, is their evil purpose? We shall have to act quickly to save the entire universe.
A little Steven Moffat career foreshadowing, which I'm surprised the Doctor Who fanbase hasn't leapt on and elevated to meme status. And a little side rant. In the middle of Moffat's run on Doctor Who, there was a vocal attempt to paint him as a misogynist. It was low on substance or devoid of it. Sure, he'd addressed it explicitly in Douglas is cancelled, but the miniseries' reason for being in Moffat's passion so obviously doesn't depend on those accusations. It has the depth to talk about misogyny on top of absent-minded sexism. Only the latter we can make a case for. But if the haters as media reviewers had have shut their gulp holes for an hour and entertained the idea they weren't fair researchers, they'd have seen Lynda, a strong, powerful woman in the creative sense, independent, fully realised in dimensions. She's a testament to how not a misogynist Moffat is. She's one of the greatest TV characters of the 1990s. Moffat is concerned with her, so much so that it's sometimes to the detriment of the male characters. Sarah, too, is treated with care and consideration for her qualities, and Sam, who most exemplifies female as beauty-focused, is multifaceted. I want some full episode of coupling and all the Sherlock, you know what I mean.
Dramatically, it's possible to do, not to change the world necessarily, but to do our bit here and there. And Steven is a marvelously non-sexist writer.
I'm Andree, and thank you for coming to my TED Talk. It's been critically argued with validity Moffat burdens his writing with too much complexity. In the overly simple explanation of the carving, there is a good example of how his love of mysteries works well.
Okay, Spike, just hold it right there.
Oh no, it's Colin!
You bet it's Colin, scumbag.
The Ruby Grogan matter picks up with the standard of where it left off, a fun exchange providing Spike's sympathies, and Colin's terrible powers of presentation for any course where the money isn't clearly in sight. Lynda is going back to Jasper Street. Editor Jeff Hogg's cut of Lynda and Kenny, backwards and forwards in time, gives me a huge grin with each watch. I mean, you can be a cynical old bugger if you want.
I live in Australia.
Kenny's off to Australia.
But it also causes me to well up a bit.
You'd better come in, Jasper.
I adored this resolution of two friends coming together to make sure a promise is kept. It nurtures our inner compassion where we strive to better show ourselves. Consistently, it warms the cockles of the heart. There's two core themes in this episode. You could even call them space and time. Kenny and Lynda's friendship is given some depth in terms of history. They stand by one another, and Kenny will always be Kenny, and Lynda will always be Lynda. Friendship from childhood, the imprinting and conditioning stages. Kenny's emphatic features are loyalty and kindness, though the latter is grey. Chris and Alvaro of the Junior Gazette podcast, The Last Word, have a running joke / point of contention that Kenny is not the nice guy that he claims to be. But I digress. Kenny is a voice of wisdom and balance, in contrast to Lynda's OCD rage and a newsroom filled in measure by high flyers and crash landers. He's got many kind attributes. However, he is boring, bland like tofu. The substance and sustenance of him comes out around other people. Enobarbus to Lynda's Anthony, wingman, buffer, stalwart, and aware of his vulnerabilities.
Well, if you have to know, it is something you said.
What?
Lynda, I do not like everybody.
Kenny, that was just something I said in the heat of the moment. Don't take it to heart.
Lynda was and is defiant. She's a force of nature. She'll do things her way and she won't stop and damn the consequences. In conflict with this are her vulnerabilities, very real, often suppressed. Jasper Street brings these to the fore. She puts off things that don't concern her right now. Why shouldn't she? Altruism is low on her list of priorities. Of course, Lynda is a bitch, but that's primarily because of what she wants certain people to think of her at certain times. And she's a bit careless around that. There's so much for her to do. Missed birthdays and navigating parental separation, schoolwork and the paper. And there's a creepy wood carving in her bedroom that she associates with those pressures. I think she is subconsciously connected to carving to Mrs. Williams for all the wrong reasons, and we'll come on to that soon. She's pushing her return to Mrs. Williams maybe so far down her list because of her cycle of anxieties, so far down that she experiences memory loss because of it and a guilt that she can't describe or attribute. So this brings up the second major theme of the episode, ageism. It's not unheard of in British culture for society to forget about old people. Part of a broader malaise in the 1980s of that attitude of minding one's own business. We can't be too hard on Lynda because that's the context that she's been taught is reality. It specifically speaks to the generational divide. Young people shouldn't bother old people, should leave them alone, and should be wary of them. And that's true especially if they're strangers. Ageism is often called the last acceptable form of discrimination. We've all done it and we'll all be victims to it. This is pointed out by the way Rose Hill as Mrs. Williams is presented to us. A lifetime of experiences in hiding behind a slow, hunched form makes her seem wily, devious, maybe sinister. In the flashback, she's more careful with her words, thereby not fitting with how we feel an old person should be, which is how we see her later, more scatterbrained and decrepit. And while Kenny and Lynda are indisputably behaving with care and respect, and not to take away from the pitch-perfect resolution, they convey these social norms in minor key. They speak as if she is hard of hearing, shy of addressing her as you would a child. I really am coming down hard on the characters because I want to set up what I feel is an important point to make. That the adult world which they are nearly a part of has time for these soft prejudices, which a child does not. Adolescence is a time of keeping up with physical changes and cognitively trying on different approaches and identities to see what feels right. In this way, Lynda and Mrs. Williams might be viewed in their similarities, perhaps even as one each of a bookend. There have been a number of studies of ageism stressing the importance of this particular generational gap. Indeed, press gang style as it plays out is very interested in bringing together viewers across the generations. Campaigning organisations have taken their findings into places where they've made headway affecting public policies. So you'll see new build schools and nurseries or care homes and elderly accommodation located next to one another. And this, as well as continuing formalised attempts at community activities which bring together the younger and the older. Now listen, I explained to Julia in the graphics department our features would be a little different this week. I said we'd focus on the supporting actors in Jasper Street. 4 short pieces, but important nonetheless. I made absolutely clear to Julie that I do not want to spend this portion of the final edition talking into the camera, filling up the body content with filler once again. There's no reason she can't have a sparkling animated layout presenting the introduction of features to viewers. I'm not asking for a mountain to be moved. All I'm asking of Julie is complete obedience. Why is that so hard to understand? Special features. Young Lynda and Kenny are superb, and I suspect Sawalha and Fletcher helped them with coaching. Kate Williams didn't go on to act on screen other than 3 episodes of Grange Hill across the 1990 to 1991 series. Simon Bright would pop up a dozen times through the 1990s on staples of British TV for an episode or two. An exception was the 1995 series Castles, playing Mark Henshaw. It was a BBC soap opera which ultimately met with failure after 24 episodes. Bright was in most of those. There's a theme link in that the core character focus was on 3 generations of a family. And also notable that the writing team included the future creator of Happy Valley. Julie Foy was on kids' TV as Tracy Gaunt in 10 episodes of kids' series about school footballers, Jossie's Giants.
Jossie's Giants!
And at the time she was known to adults for a half-year run on Coronation Street as the first of 2 actresses playing Gina Seddon. Gina was the sister of and lodger of mainstay Sally Webster. Julie followed this up appearing on stage with the Birmingham Repertory Company and at the York Theatre Royal. After an extended break from acting, she's still working as a creative. She produced a 2017 live-action short, The Silent Child, which netted her an Oscar and several other awards and nominations. She's currently helming the Canadian true crime drama movie, Daring Greatly, which appears to be in post-production. As far as we can ascertain, Julie and her curiously shaped hat didn't work together after Press Gang. And as you might imagine, Rose Hill had a long acting career, dating back to 1949's TV movie Oranges and Lemons. A number of TV movies in the 50s as well, as series spots, Play of the Week, Dad's Army, One Shots Again. Her acting was in tandem with her performances coming out of winning a Guildhall Music Scholarship, and she worked extensively as an operatic soprano. This talent let her take related roles, such as in Peter Sellers' A Shot in the Dark. Hill played with the English National Opera and the Royal Shakespeare Company, and at Aldwych Theatre, an epic 8-hour stage adaptation of Nicholas Nickleby as part of a well-respected cast. She did this over 1980 and 1981, the latter appearing as part of an extended Channel 4 broadcast. But Hill was best known for 78 episodes of primetime sitcom Allo Allo in the decade leading up to Press Gang. Set in occupied France, Hill played Madame Fanny Lafan, the gin-drinking, German-hating mother living in René's attic.
What is your opinion, madam?
She also turned up in The Bill and A Touch of Frost afterwards. She passed away in 2003, spending her final years in Denville Hall, a retirement home for actors, alongside her Allo Allo castmate Carmen Silvera. If something from this Press Gang revisit has spoken to you, please log in a comment and take out a subscription. You can ring my bell or go further. My Patreon includes exclusive videos as well as early advances. 9 pieces a month for the basic cost of £1 or $1, which means each early look is cheaper than the Junior Gazette circa 1989. Thank you very much to my video production assistant, Andrew Wood at Ditto Media, and thank you very much to my patrons whose names are up on the bulletin board now, especially Andrew Gallagher, Alan Royal, Ben Stone, Ian Lawther, Arslan Hyder Ali, and Art K.
Remember we used to do this and run away?
I ran away, you stayed and apologised.